She even reminds me sometimes, dial that down a little bit, that there's not a lot of, I think often in self-help, personal development, I don't know what I would call it. I don't even really believe in these things, but sort of a feminine energy to the same topics that brings a nuance and a perspective. Don't you agree? That's different from someone else. And you bring that.
Well, thank you. And I think I just wanted to pick up on your thing about you're speaking to, quote, the one, people who are the one in the family who are breaking away, the achievers. I think there's so many ways that we don't talk about to, quote, break away or break a cycle. And it doesn't always have to be in being the, quote, successful one. Yep. There are so many different ways to break a cycle of silence that might exist in a family, a cycle of shame that might exist in a family, a cycle of, shame, anger, all of these things that exist in families. There's a way to break those cycles as well and be the one in that respect. So the one isn't necessarily the one making all the money.
Right.
It's the one who is following their path, I think, who has the courage and the bravery to chart their own course. And I think that's really, when we talk about feminine strength, I think I grew up in a time, my mother was certainly an incredibly strong woman, started Special Olympics, was tough, but she dressed like a man. She only had male friends. She went to work with a briefcase like a guy. She was fighting all the time to be at that table. She smoked cigars. She only just kind of, she was a force, right? Yeah. And I came into journalism when there were no women in it, right? And women were coming in and you had to wear a power suit and you had to work twice as hard. And if you had a baby, you had to come back in a week and you had to do a lot of things that perhaps this generation doesn't have to do. So I think what is the model of feminine, all-encompassing feminine strength? And I try to speak a lot to the ideal of holding these qualities of tenderness and toughness, strength and sexiness, feminine beauty and vulnerability, but also being aware that anger is in there, strength is in there, intelligence is in there, as is, these other kind of more traditionally feminine qualities. And I think that's the conversation when we think about feminine power that I'd like to be having this generation and others to have. So it's kind of being able to take care of yourself, but also need someone else and lean on someone else and be able to celebrate your femininity and your sexuality, but also hold your ground and have boundaries. And these are things you learn through life, but that was not part of the conversation when I was in my 20s or 30s.
By the way, I don't think, first off, everybody listening to this, you need to go rewind that part back and send that to your favorite woman not listening to the show right now. By the way, I want to just say, I don't think it's being said right now very much, what you just said, which is why you're so important. I think people know you. I know the multiple sides of you. Like, I think a lot of people are getting exposed to this side of you, maybe on my show for the first time. This person who really reflects on life, really cares about human beings. And I think I don't know. I think one thing we share in common is like we take our life seriously. I don't take myself, maybe sometimes I take myself too seriously, but I do take this gift of being here pretty darn seriously. Like I want to, I always call it maxing out, but I want to contribute as much as I can. I want to grow as much as I can. I want to pause as much as I can at this stage of my life too. That's become much more important. But one thing I did do, because my dad was good at this, my father could care less about material things, achievement. It was not even really discussed. It was, who are you going to be? Right. Not what are you going to be? And that's something that my dad said over and over. So I'm researching more about my friend here. And I read this quote. You said, I've learned that asking ourselves not just what we want to be,